What up? Welcome back to All Grit, No Gifts. I'm your host, the standout without handouts, Rahshad Breakaway. And today I wanted to talk about something that I tend to refer to here and there, during my journey, during my walk. These are some of the things that I kind of check on here and there to help me out, and kind of navigate this thing we call life. And the idea I wanted to talk about today was the Hedonic treadmill. The Hedonic treadmill is based on something in regards to hedonism. And hedonism is the school of thought that the pursuit of pleasure or happiness was the most chief important thing one can do with one's life. But I'm the type who believes that all things in moderation, including moderation. But for example, too much of a good thing can lead to some things to be cautious of. And I don't necessarily subscribe to hedonism, but I like to think of things as trying to find that middle ground. For instance, we all have our baseline dispositions, and no matter what life throws at you, good or bad, you tend to level out, over time. Incredibly good things can happen to you, and you tend to bounce back, and incredibly bad things can happen to you, and you tend to bounce back to your baseline or your default disposition. So the idea of what the hedonic treadmill is a idea or a theory developed by a psychologist, Michael Eising. He thought of things in terms of someone having to continue to put forth effort or continue to walk to stay in the same place. Like no matter if we're super happy, eventually that finds its baseline, and it doesn't have the same bang for your buck, so to speak. So you have to stay in continual pursuit and continuous effort just to get to the status quo. Now, for instance, imagine, I'll give an example from my life. When I was younger, and I was just starting my grind, I didn't have a whip, I had to catch the bus. And I can remember, all the inconveniences of catching the bus. And, sometimes you'd have to wait out in the cold or wait in the sweltering heat for your bus to come to take you to your gig, And you get on the bus, you're not at your leisure, you're going on a specific route. So there's no detours, no stopping the bus, just for your particular interest. But you guys get the idea. Sometimes there's a lot of inconveniences of riding a bus. So I remember as I rode the bus to my gig, I aspired to get a car. That was where the next aspiration was. I was like, okay, let me get off this little public transit and get my own wheel, So I had my goal, when I was working, I was gonna get my bread right, get my money up and get me a car. Now mind you, this was when I was quite young, I was just still a teenager in high school. But eventually my goal was to get a car, because I was not, satisfied riding the bus. So, over time, I toughed it out. I was on my square. I got my money right, and I got me a car, and I was ecstatic, and it was a cool car. When I was young, I got me a brand new car. I was in high school hustling, and I had a new car, in like 12th grade, and I was still doing good in school and all that. But I got my car, and that was my point, and I was ecstatic, I was happy. No more trips on the bus, no more of the inconveniences of a bus. And, we all know that new car feeling. You want to shine it up, you want to make sure it stays spiffy, you treasure it. There's a lot of ideas like that where something novel is valued a lot more. But over time, my car just became, the bucket, you know what I mean? Like, not that I ruined it or I didn't appreciate it, but it was just the new status quo. And now, mind you, it was a big improvement from sitting out in the cold or in the hot waiting for the bus, or having to share the bus with people I didn't particularly care for, or a company I might not have wanted. all those inconveniences were gone. But eventually, that same sensation, that same appreciation of difference, it kind of waned. And, that's just one example, so eventually even the car was just, just the next common thing. And I aspired for further pursuits, or further things, So what I'm saying is that that happiness wasn't very lasting. It lasted for the time it lasted, but eventually I found my baseline disposition again. And, that's an example of the hedonic treadmill. Before long I wanted a better car, just to give me another shot in the arm, so to speak, and now I had to step my game up and pursue higher goals, So you can really get caught up on the hedonic treadmill, it never stops. It's almost like a dieting malady. Like if you eat too much and you're too gluttonous, you begin to condition yourself for that. Like for instance, if you're having a problem and you're overeating, ultimately your physicality changes. Your physiology, your gut grows. And it takes more to satisfy you. And that's like a physical metaphor for the emotional idea of the hedonic treadmill. Your appetite grows and your capacity grows, and it takes more to feel that same, to satiate you and get back to that same feeling of contentment. So I try to be mindful of things like that. When on this journey we call life. On my grind, I try to bear in mind that we're all dealing with a hedonic treadmill of our own. And these ads out here, a lot of the ads are just like needling you and encouraging you to jump back onto a different hedonic treadmill or another. They're making all these suggestions that this one different item or this next purchase will just bring you such happiness. And when you get all of these suggestions, you start to think about like, man, well, hey, maybe my life will improve, or maybe I can get this or that and it'll change everything. And those are the sort of things that you have to really be wary of, seeing as how we're just inundated with ads and suggestions all the time. And a lot of these things suggest that you be happy once you have something, and oftentimes it's quite material. So in light of that, you have to be self-aware, and you have to exercise self-control. The more self-aware you are, it's like tuning on an old radio. I know many of us are probably just online using digital streaming and everything, and the metaphor may be a little bit of an antiquity, but I remember back in the day, you want to go listen to the radio, the hot station, and you have to tune it. You know what I mean? You tune it in, and I equate self-awareness, or your own self-conscious, not self-conscious, but your own conscious, as a radio signal that you're trying to tune into. And sometimes you can tune the channel and you can still hear interference from other frequencies and other things on that wavelength, and the channel you're looking for isn't quite clear. And I look at some of the ads and some of the different distractions that we're inundated with as static on that radio frequency, so to speak, that you're trying to tune into, which is your own self-awareness and your own conscious. And the more distractions and the more outside influences, it's like the harder it is to tune into that frequency you're trying to tap into, which is yourself. So sometimes it takes a lot of practice, and it takes some honing in just to be self-aware, to know how certain things affect you, and to be honest with yourself about your emotions, and to take the time to actually experience it, and not just to be distracted and ping-ponging all over the place. And I think that can help a lot as we deal with things like the hedonic treadmill, and I'm practicing myself. These are things that I still find challenging. I'm not exempt. I'm not immune to the effects of the life that we lead right now. A lot of these things I try to shield myself away from. I try not to expose myself to too much advertising, not just because it's inconvenient, but because I see the the suggestiveness of it, and the suggestiveness of it, and the way it can distract you. And ads aren't the only thing that distract you. You know, there's all sorts of things vying for your attention. So you really have to be on guard and be vigilant about, you know, things and messages coming at you, and what they do to you, and the disposition they encourage. And you know, another thing that I use to help me as I navigate, you know, stepping off the hedonic treadmill is to appreciate what you have. You know, it's a little bit of stoicism. You know, you don't look at what you don't have. And I know now that can be quite tough with a lot of the social media and a lot of people, you know, showing you the highlight reel. You know, they're just suggesting how they just own in life and everybody's crushing it, everybody out there balling. But, you know, that can leave you with a feeling of maybe, you know, you're not performing, or you know, you're not doing as good as so-and-so or such and such. And, you know, that can really put you in a bad place, in a bad headspace. So sometimes you got to take a minute to stop thinking about what you don't have and to appreciate actually what you have. You know, and I limit my exposure to messages like that suggest that I don't have enough, or, you know, I'm missing something, because that can really do a number on you. And, you know, you gotta find some peace of mind, man, in this tumultuous times and in these things going on out here. But one thing again that I find is a little bit helpful is to appreciate what you got. And when you appreciate what you have, you know, appreciation is adding value to appreciate, you know, like a stock appreciates. You know, when you appreciate what you have, you inherently add value to it, you know, and there's few instances in life that allow you to appreciate. You know, ask a stockbroker how much they enjoy appreciation of something, and how fleeting that can be. So when you think of things in those terms, you start to look for ways to appreciate things and take advantage of that. And, you know, you just be grateful. I used to practice, you know, I'm a little bit out of practice. I would journal. I would write down 3 things I was grateful for every morning when I was having my breakfast, you know, before I head out to work. I would just jot down a few things, and they didn't have to be, you know, earth-changing things or world-changing things. It was just things I was truly grateful for. And sometimes it was just, you know, fresh air, man, or the birds chirping. You know, it can seem trivial, but, you know, you'd be thrown off if you went outside and there was no sound, no animals, no life. You know, you don't necessarily stop to think about it all the time, but you'd be shook if you went outside and was no birds nowhere. Yeah, you know, that'll do a number on you. But, you know, just simple things like that, and they could be whatever. You know, appreciate your mama, your father, your loved ones. You know, and each day I would practice that. You know, again, I'm a little out of practice. I need to get back on it. But psychologically, that puts your mind in a better headspace. You know, right out the gate, right, first thing in the morning, you're thinking of things like that. You know, so those are some of the things I would do to kind of help myself to step off the hedonic treadmill. Because, you know, again, you can see examples of it all over the place, man. There's millionaires and billionaires out here, and they still are looking for something to aspire to. So it's endless, you know. Money is not necessarily the end game, you know, but occasionally you need to step off the hedonic treadmill, man, or you'll just get wore out. You know, you got to know, you got to temper it, you know, you got to temper your expectations of pleasure. You know, too much of a good thing is something to be mindful of. You know, I'm not necessarily encouraging anyone to be down, you know, because if you're continuously down or distraught or, you know, just bummed out, you know, that's like depression. But if you continuously just on one, you hype and you always just on one, you know, that's mania. And, you know, that's not always appropriate either. You know, you step to a funeral smiling, you know, from ear to ear like the Viagra dude in those commercials, you know, that's kind of inappropriate. You know, there's times to be somber, and there's seasons of life and situations of life where you need that balance, you know. So those are some of the ideas that I've been thinking of, and I try to refer to occasionally here and there, you know, just to help navigate this journey I'm on. And that's something I wanted to share with you all. But aside from that, you know, I want to thank you for checking me out, tuning in again, and I want to encourage anybody who wanted to reach out to my email. You know, that's allgritnogifts@gmail.com. You can reach me there if you wanted to, you know, chop it up or get in touch with me. Also, you could always comment, do your thing, you know. And yeah, also I got on my Get You Dough hoodie, you know what I mean? This thing is nice and spiffy. This is what we do here, you know what I'm saying? It's real comfy, real soft, and it's real light, form-fitting. You know, I'm just chilling, just doing me. And if you want to get one of these, you can get one at portpeewee.com. Yeah, check me out, rock with your boy, get one of those. But that's gonna wrap up this one. Just wanted to follow up, you know, stay consistent and get this grind going, and just keep adding value. Try to throw something at y'all that I think could be helpful. And yeah, to the next time, y'all. I'm out. Peace.